The impossible application. The Council of Worlds receives an unusual request. The crystal spires of the Galactic Tourism Council stretched toward the artificial stars of Station Harmony, their surfaces reflecting the light of 1,000 different suns. Inside the main chamber, beings from across the galaxy gathered for what would become the most controversial meeting in the Council's 3,000-year history. The holographic display at the center of the room showed a simple application form, glowing softly against the metallic walls. Director Zephyros, whose gas-form body shimmered like captured starlight, floated at the head of the council table. His voice carried the weight of centuries as he addressed the assembled representatives. Colleagues, we face an unprecedented situation. The species known as humans have submitted an application to classify their homeworld as a Class A tourist destination. A ripple of disbelief passed through the chamber. Councillor Vextera, her 6 arms gesturing frantically, spoke first. Her chittering voice carried clear distress as her translator converted her words. Director, surely there has been some mistake. Our databases classify Earth as a Category 12 Deathworld. The mortality rate for non-native species exceeds 97% within the first standard day. The holographic display shifted to show Earth's planetary statistics. The numbers glowed ominously in the chamber's soft light. Gravity nearly 10 times stronger than most inhabited worlds. Atmospheric pressure that would crush the respiratory systems of half the galaxy's species. Temperatures that swung between extremes that would freeze or boil most known life forms. Weather patterns that generated electromagnetic storms capable of destroying starships. Councillor Phyrexy, whose crystalline form resonated with harmonic frequencies when stressed, began emitting morning tones. The atmospheric composition alone violates 43 safety protocols. 21% oxygen creates explosive conditions. Their nitrogen levels would cause immediate neural damage to Centaurian species, and they want us to recommend this as a vacation destination. Director Zephyros extended one of his gaseous appendages toward the chamber's entrance. Perhaps we should hear from their representative before we dismiss this entirely. I present Ambassador Sarah Chen of the Human Federation. The human ambassador arrives. The chamber doors dilated with a soft whisper, and Sarah Chen walked into the room with the confident stride that only came from growing up under Earth's crushing gravity. She wore a simple diplomatic uniform that seemed almost primitive compared to the environmental suits and containment fields required by most of the council members. Her presence immediately commanded attention, not through intimidation, but through the quiet strength that radiated from someone who had survived conditions that would kill most beings in the galaxy. Sarah's smile was warm and genuine as she activated her presentation system. Honored council members, thank you for considering Earth's application. I understand your concerns about our world's classification, but I believe you'll find that what makes Earth dangerous also makes it uniquely appealing to adventurous travelers. The holographic display filled with images that made several council members recoil in their protective barriers. Humans swimming in vast bodies of water alongside creatures with razor-sharp teeth. Others throwing themselves from impossible heights, trusting their lives to fabric contraptions. Groups climbing vertical rock faces that would challenge military-grade equipment. Children playing in open spaces under the blazing radiation of their star. Councillor Vextera's arms trembled as she pointed toward the images. Ambassador Chen, these activities would be classified as cruel and unusual punishment under galactic law. Your species appears to voluntarily engage in behaviors that we use to test military survival equipment. Sarah's laugh was musical and completely unforced. What you're seeing are our recreational activities: surfing, skydiving, rock climbing, beach volleyball. These are how humans relax and have fun. Earth offers experiences that simply don't exist anywhere else in the galaxy because nowhere else has our unique combination of challenges and beauty. The display shifted to show human cities bustling with activity. Millions of beings moving through environments that registered as lethal on every scanner in the room. They'd breathed the toxic atmosphere freely, absorbed radiation levels that would require immediate medical intervention for most species, and somehow thrived in gravitational conditions that would crush a Rigelian child. Director Zephyros floated closer to the display, his gaseous form shimmering with curiosity. Ambassador, our records indicate that your species has only recently achieved interstellar travel. How is it possible that you survived on such a hostile world long enough to develop advanced civilization? The truth about human evolution. Sarah's expression grew thoughtful as she considered the question. Earth shaped us, Director. Every challenge your species considers lethal is something humans have adapted to over millions of years of evolution. Our gravity gave us strength. Our weather taught us resilience. Our predators made us clever. What you see as a death world, we see as home. The presentation continued, showing human achievements that defy logical explanation. Cities built on tectonic fault lines that regularly experienced ground-shaking earthquakes. Settlements in regions where temperatures regularly exceeded the boiling point of most species' blood. Communities thriving in areas where the atmosphere was so thin that most beings would lose consciousness within minutes. Counselor Thyrexi's harmonic tones grew more agitated. But the wildlife, Ambassador, our surveys indicate your planet hosts creatures that would be classified as weapons of mass destruction on civilized worlds. How do you coexist with such beings? Sarah activated another series of images that sent several council members deeper into their protective barriers. Humans swimming with massive aquatic predators whose teeth could slice through starship hull plating. Others walking calmly past land-based carnivores that massed more than most planetary assault vehicles. Children feeding creatures that registered as chemical weapons manufacturers on galactic scanners. We learned to understand them. Sarah explained simply. Every species on Earth found its niche in our ecosystem. Humans became the species that could adapt to any environment, survive any challenge, and find beauty in any circumstance. We don't just survive on Earth. We flourish there. The chamber fell silent except for the nervous humming of various life support systems. Finally, Counselor McZandy, whose energy-based form had been quietly analyzing the presentation data, spoke. Ambassador Chen, assuming we could develop appropriate safety protocols, what exactly would human tourism offer that couldn't be found in safer environments? The promise of adventure. Sarah's smile brightened, and somehow that expression made the council members even more nervous. Authentic adventure, Counselor. Not simulated danger or artificial challenges, but real experiences that test visitors' limits while keeping them as safe as possible. Where else in the galaxy can someone experience the thrill of riding waves generated by gravitational forces that move millions of tons of water? Or feel the exhilaration of gliding through an atmosphere so dense it provides natural lift for fabric wings? The presentation shifted to show more peaceful human activities that were nonetheless impossible on other worlds. Humans lying on beaches, absorbing radiation levels that would sterilize most organic compounds. Others breathing the thin atmosphere at altitudes where the pressure would cause most beings' blood to boil. Groups gathered around combustion reactions, consuming food that registered as various classes of toxins and somehow enjoying the experience. We've prepared comprehensive safety packages, Sarah continued. Environmental suits designed specifically for each visiting species, medical support trained in xenobiology, graduated experience levels from absolutely safe Earth experiences up to moderately challenging adventures for those seeking more excitement. Director Zephyros floated thoughtfully around the chamber. The liability concerns alone would bankrupt our insurance systems. No rational being would voluntarily expose themselves to such conditions. Sarah's expression grew knowing. Director, respectfully, you're thinking like someone who's never lived with real challenge. There are beings across the galaxy who've grown tired of perfectly safe, completely predictable lives. Earth offers something that's been lost in most civilized worlds. The chance to feel truly alive through genuine accomplishment. The decision point. The council members exchanged glances through their various protective barriers and communication systems. The humans' proposal was simultaneously the most dangerous and the most intriguing tourism application they'd ever received. Earth offered experiences that were literally impossible to replicate elsewhere, but at costs that seemed impossible to justify. Counselor Vextera spoke carefully. Ambassador, even if we could address the safety concerns, how would we explain recommending a Deathworld as a vacation destination to our constituents? By being honest about what we're offering. Sarah replied, Earth isn't for everyone. We're not trying to compete with the peaceful garden worlds or the luxurious space stations. We're offering something for beings who want to experience the universe the way our ancestors did, when every day required courage and every accomplishment meant something. The presentation concluded with images of humans engaged in activities that combine deadly danger with impossible beauty. Individuals standing at the edges of massive geological formations, where one wrong step meant certain death, but the views encompassed landscapes that no other world could offer. Groups navigating through weather systems that generated electromagnetic phenomena visible from orbit, creating light shows that no artificial entertainment could match. Director Zephyros began to glow more brightly, indicating deep thought in his species. Ambassador Chen, if we were to consider this proposal, we would need extensive safety trials, comprehensive insurance policies, and probably the most detailed liability waivers in galactic history. Sarah nodded enthusiastically. We're prepared for all of that, Director. We've already identified several volunteer tourists from species that have expressed interest in extreme experiences. With proper preparation and safety protocols, we believe Earth can offer adventures that will create memories lasting multiple lifetimes. The chamber buzzed with nervous energy as the council members began the complex process of debating humanity's impossible proposal. Outside the station's windows, stars wheeled in their eternal dance, but inside, a small group of beings considered whether to recommend the most dangerous vacation destination in the known galaxy. The vote, when it finally came, was closer than anyone expected. Welcome to Paradise, Deathworld Edition. The bravest tourists in the galaxy. 3 standard months after the Galactic Tourism Council's narrow approval of Earth's tourism application, the luxury transport vessel, Stellar Serenity, dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. Inside its heavily shielded passenger compartments, 12 beings from across the galaxy made final preparations for what their friends and families had called either the adventure of a lifetime or elaborate suicide. The passenger manifest read like a collection of the galaxy's most determined thrill seekers. Crixon, a Xentorian philosopher whose species had eliminated all forms of physical challenge from their crystalline cities millennia ago, floated in his specialized atmospheric chamber, mandibles clicking with nervous excitement. Velara and Thys, twin energy beings from the Harmony Cluster, existed as contained mathematical equations whose curiosity about physical sensation had driven them to attempt the impossible. Dr. Quenthia, the expedition's xenobiologist, represented the scientific community's fascination with humanity's impossible survival. Her 8 eyes focused independently on different readouts as her ship's sensors registered the increasing danger levels as they approached Earth. Even Zarbak, a Korthan warrior whose species prided itself on courage, found his usually steady claws trembling as Earth grew larger in the viewports. The transport's captain, a grizzled Vorthan named Crixus, had volunteered for this mission specifically because no other captain was willing to risk their reputation. His voice carried over the ship's communication system as they began their descent. Passengers, we are beginning atmospheric entry. Please ensure all safety systems are activated and emergency protocols are understood. If anyone wishes to reconsider, we can still return to orbit. Not one passenger requested evacuation. Atmospheric entry. The first challenge. Earth's atmosphere welcomed the Stellar Serenity like a hostile beast. The ship's shields glowed cherry red as friction heated the hull to temperatures that would melt most structural materials. Inside their protective chambers, the tourists experienced their first taste of conditions that humans considered routine. Turbulence that would have been classified as a natural disaster on most worlds shook the vessel as it descended through what the navigation computer cheerfully announced as normal weather patterns. Crickson's translator worked overtime to convey his species' concept of terror as atmospheric pressure readings climbed beyond anything in his experience. The external readings indicate we are descending into conditions that would classify as a gas giant's lower atmosphere on most worlds. He chittered to his fellow passengers. Vilara and Thys, existing as pure energy, experienced the descent differently, but no less dramatically. Marcus Rodriguez stood in the blazing sunlight wearing nothing more than khaki shorts, a cotton shirt, and something he called sunglasses. His dark skin absorbed radiation levels that should have sterilized organic tissue, and he breathed the toxic atmosphere as if it were the most natural thing in the universe. His smile was warm and welcoming as he approached the heavily protected tourists. "Welcome to Earth, everyone," Marcus called out in perfect galactic standard, his voice carrying easily through the thin atmosphere. "I'm Marcus, your adventure coordinator. Beautiful day, isn't it? Perfect weather for our first activities." Dr. Quenthia's 8 eyes focused on Marcus with scientific fascination and horror. Her scanners registered his core body temperature at levels that would trigger medical emergencies for most species, yet he moved with fluid grace and obvious comfort. "Human Marcus," she managed, her voice distorted by her suit's atmospheric processors, "our readings indicate environmental conditions that should be immediately lethal. How are you surviving unprotected exposure?" Marcus laughed, the sound carrying a musicality that suggested complete ease in his environment. "This is actually pretty mild for Florida in spring. Wait until you experience summer if you really want to understand human adaptability. But don't worry, we've prepared everything to keep you safe while giving you authentic Earth experiences." The tour group followed Marcus across what he called a parking lot, a primitive surface made of materials that absorbed and radiated heat in ways that would create furnace-like conditions on most worlds. Around them, other humans moved casually through the hellish environment. Children ran and played in the open radiation, their laughter carrying clearly through air that would be classified as a toxic gas mixture on civilized planets. The first gentle activity, beach visit. Marcus led the group toward a series of ground vehicles that registered as primitive mechanical devices held together by materials that wouldn't qualify as starship components. "Our first stop is Cocoa Beach," he announced cheerfully. "We thought we'd start with something relaxing before moving on to more exciting activities." The 20-minute journey provided the tourists with their first extended look at human civilization existing in impossible conditions. Cities sprawled under the blazing radiation of Earth's star, their inhabitants moving freely through environments that required constant life support on every other known world. Traffic flowed along primitive roadways where humans guided their vehicles manually through conditions that would challenge automated systems designed for asteroid mining. Zarbak, the Korthan warrior, found his warrior's pride challenged by the casual bravery he witnessed. These humans navigate through environmental hazards as if they were leisure activities. He growled to his fellow passengers. "My people would consider such conditions worthy of songs celebrating heroic survival." The beach, when they arrived, defied every concept of recreational space the tourists had ever encountered. Vast quantities of granulated minerals stretched toward a body of water so large it disappeared beyond the horizon. The water itself moved in patterns that demonstrated gravitational forces massive enough to affect planetary rotation, creating waves that crashed with the power of industrial machinery. But what truly stunned the visitors was the human response to these conditions. Hundreds of people lay exposed on the mineral surface, absorbing radiation levels that would require hazmat protocols on most worlds. Others entered the moving water voluntarily, allowing themselves to be tumbled by forces that could demolish most structures. Children built temporary constructions from the granulated minerals while completely ignoring environmental conditions that would kill most species within minutes. Understanding human recreation, Marcus spread out what he called a beach blanket and invited the tourists to observe human beach behavior through their protective barriers. "This is how humans relax," he explained, seeming genuinely oblivious to the fact that his idea of relaxation would be classified as extreme survival training by most military organizations. A group of humans nearby demonstrated activities that challenged every safety protocol in galactic civilization. They threw a spherical object back and forth while running through sand that shifted under their feet in ways that would challenge most species' balance systems. Others struck a smaller sphere with primitive implements, generating enough force to send the projectile at velocities that would qualify as weapons discharge in most star systems. Crixon's mandibles clicked frantically as he processed what he was witnessing. The gravitational effects of their planetary rotation create moving water patterns that generate kinetic energy equivalent to industrial processes. He chittered to Dr. Quenthia. Yet they enter these conditions voluntarily for pleasure. Observe their physiological responses, Dr. Quenthia replied, her scanners working constantly. Elevated heart rates, increased respiration, elevated endorphin production. They are experiencing genuine enjoyment from conditions that would trigger survival instincts in most species. Marcus noticed their scientific interest and grinned. Want to try something really exciting? We could go surfing. That's where humans ride the waves using specially designed boards. It's perfectly safe with proper instruction and safety equipment. The suggestion that they voluntarily enter the moving water sent several tourists deeper into their protective barriers. But Velara and Thys, the energy beings, pulsed with mathematical curiosity. As pure consciousness, they could observe the complex physics of wave formation and energy transfer in ways that physical beings couldn't appreciate. Through their shared awareness, they began to understand the appeal of matching human reflexes against natural forces, the revelation of human resilience. As the day progressed, the tourists witnessed increasingly impossible demonstrations of human adaptability. Families gathered around controlled combustion reactions, consuming food that registered as various classifications of toxic substances while apparently enjoying social bonding. Children played games that involved running at speeds that should have caused gravitational stress injuries. Adults engaged in conversations while breathing atmospheric mixtures that would cause immediate neural damage in most species. But the most stunning revelation came during what Marcus called sunset. As Earth's star descended toward the horizon, its radiation patterns painted the sky in colors that most species couldn't perceive without specialized equipment. Humans gathered to watch this daily occurrence with expressions of wonder and peace, completely ignoring the fact that they were witnessing electromagnetic phenomena that would be classified as dangerous light shows on most worlds. Zarbak, the warrior, found himself moved by the beauty despite the obvious danger. They find joy in the very conditions that make their world lethal, he rumbled to his companions. This is not mere survival. This is triumph over impossible circumstances. Dr. Quenthia's scientific instruments registered something unprecedented in her years of stenobiological research. The humans weren't just surviving Earth's conditions, they were thriving because of them. Every challenge their world presented had been transformed into an opportunity for growth, strength, or beauty. Their adaptation wasn't defensive, it was celebratory. The true meaning of adventure. As the tour group prepared to return to their ship for the night, several of the tourists found themselves viewing the humans with new understanding. These beings hadn't conquered their world through technology or environmental modification. They had become something unique in the galaxy, a species that had learned to find beauty in danger, strength in challenge, and community in circumstances that would scatter most civilizations. Marcus gathered the group near their transport, his easy smile unchanged, despite having spent the day in conditions that required the tourists' most advanced life support systems. Tomorrow, we'll try some more active adventures, he announced. Maybe hiking, or if you're feeling brave, we could visit a theme park. Humans love roller coasters. The suggestion of roller coasters triggered immediate translation difficulties as the tourists' computers struggled to process activities that involved voluntarily subjecting oneself to gravitational forces that would be used for astronaut training in most civilizations. As they returned to the safety of their ship, The 12 tourists carried with them a new understanding of what made humans unique in the galaxy. Earth wasn't just a death world that had somehow produced intelligent life. It was a world that had forged a species capable of transforming any challenge into an adventure, any danger into an opportunity for joy. The humans hadn't just survived the impossible. They had learned to make the impossible beautiful. And for the first time in galactic history, beings from across the stars began to understand that sometimes the most dangerous places produced the most extraordinary experiences. Earth's tourism application hadn't been approved despite its dangers. It had been approved because of them. In the ship's observation lounge, as Earth rotated beneath them in all its terrible beauty, 12 beings from across the galaxy began planning their return visits. Some adventures, they realized, were worth traveling across the stars to experience, even if it meant surviving a day on the most beautiful death world in the universe.